Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
Some background. I am an American, born and raised, but my boyfriend, who I will always refer to as Sarge in my posts, is from Russia. We also have a dog who used to be Sarge's dog while he served in the Russian military, but is now my service dog as we live together. His name is Comrade. Sarge didn't know what to name him when he got him, so he just called him Comrade, as in fellow companion, and the name just stuck, and he is a beautiful brown, auburn, black Estrela mountain dog. This happened like 2 or so years after Sarge moved to the US and got his citizenship. At this time I had a few jobs. I tutored kids in musical instruments, strings, and percussion, was a writer, and mostly for the hell of it, was a manager at a local McDonald's. Why? Easy money. I just had to supervise and make sure everyone was keeping clean basically. I dealt with a spoiled parent every now and then complaining about there isn't enough cheese or my kid wants this toy in their meal and stuff like that. But it wasn't very hard. Whenever I went anywhere outside the house, Comrade was with me. I have him for PTSD, paranoia, and anxiety. I also have FAS, foreign accent syndrome, which is related to the accident that caused PTSD and paranoia, but that's not why I have Comrade, although it is important to keep in mind for later. Although he was originally a military dog, Sarge trained him to be a service dog for me and we got him certified, and he has the vest that says in giant letters, "Do not touch," and everything. During this time, Sarge was working as a dog trainer and a falconer, which is why he was so good with dogs. Anyway, when I was at Mickey D's, Comrade always did a really nice job of sitting in the corner and behaving. The entire staff knew him and how much of a sweetheart he is despite his huge and menacing look, bronc size. And since I was comfortable with it, they were allowed to feed him a few fries every now and then and also give belly rubs. They knew this. Usually, whenever I was on break, Sarge would be between jobs and meet up with me so we could relax, have a little food, etc. This particular time he happened to bring an owl, her name is Emma, she's a barn owl who is actually not nocturnal, into the place, and of course everyone was chill. Business was slow since during the time of day kids were at school and parents at work. And by slow I mean it was completely empty except for the staff. The break was going as per usual until Emma began to get a little antsy on Sarge's arm, you know, because he was wearing one of those falcon gloves. He had to take her out for a bit, and I was left with Comrade, who was sitting up next to me in the booth, looking like Chewbacca or something. I had my journal out and was scribbling something in it. I usually always have my journal on me to write down random thoughts and pictures as a form of therapy. There are pretty poetic things in it, as well as some pretty gruesome excerpts and images. I was drawing one of those graphic pictures. A few minutes later, a mother, the entitled mother, and her son, who was about 6 to 8, the entitled brat, stroll in. They are now the only customers. Cool? The entitled brat notices Comrade right away, because from the other side of the establishment I hear an excited gasp. I peek up and my thoughts are confirmed. The entitled brat looks ecstatic. The entitled mother smiles too and ushers him to the counter so they can order. I smile too as I look back to my journal. I love kids, and even more than that, I love making them happy. Unsurprisingly, about a minute later when they finished ordering and paid, the boy was standing in front of the booth with wide eyes. Keep in mind that I am sitting next to the wall and Comrade is sitting on the other side of me. He is fanboying next to the table, and I chuckle. He still hadn't said anything. The entitled mother walked over, and the entitled brat squealed with excitement, saying he wanted to pet my dog. I'm still smiling at this point because kids get me in my soft spot. In the beginning, the mom was chill. She politely told her son that it was a service dog that couldn't be touched. The child pouted in response. With my Russian accent, remember the FS I mentioned, I told them that they could actually pet him if they wanted to, explaining that he was quite friendly and that his name was Comrade. I probably looked like the most Russian on the face of Russia, with an accent and a strong dog named Comrade. The entitled brat squealed again and pets the great dog gently by his scruff. The entitled mother seems impressed and goes to pet him too. See, I let them have a pet because although he is technically working, 1. I hate disappointing people in general, and especially kids. 2. I suck at confrontation. And 3. He's pretty good about not getting distracted anyway, so I figure all is well. And all is going well until the entitled brat expressed to his mom how cool the dog was, and that he wanted him. I chuckle and half expect the mom to as well, but instead the entitled mother told her son that he knew how they got things they wanted. The boy then told me very politely that he wanted to buy my dog. I was pretty taken aback, so I assumed this was a joke, although the entitled mother wasn't laughing. I explained, still with my Russian accent, that he wasn't for sale because I needed him for my day-to-day life. I said this with a chuckle and a smile since I thought it was a joke after all. The entitled brat looks confused, and the entitled mother looks like I was the one joking. The entitled mother then suggested that I didn't really need the dog, pointing out that if he was truly important, I wouldn't let them pet him, questioning his status as a working dog while pointing to his vest. I am now anxious. Comrade, sensing this, shuffles closer to me, which prompts the entitled brat to cling to his service vest, not wanting him to move away. I told the boy to let go of the vest, my accent still strong. The entitled brat reluctantly let go of the vest while pouting and saying he had asked nicely. I tried to apologize but was interrupted by the entitled mother, who seemed appalled. The entitled mother accused me of yanking her son away, and went on to explain that her son was at the top of his class and had been wanting a dog for a while. She insisted that it was time he got one, and that he wanted my dog specifically. I tried again to apologize but explained that Comrade was my companion. I mentioned that my boyfriend trained dogs, if they were interested, but I couldn't give them mine. At this point, the entitled mother clicked her tongue and looked down at her son, telling him this was why they didn't like Russians, calling us selfish and arrogant. She then turned back to me, asking if I was really going to deny her baby the mutt, and suggesting that as Russians, we were supposed to share. I responded sarcastically, questioning how her supposedly smart boy didn't understand what a service dog was, suggesting he took after his mother. The entitled mother looked furious enough to slap me. Now I was angry instead of shy, and all these snappy comebacks came flooding in. She demanded to know what gave me the right to speak to her that way, calling me a slur and an immigrant. Now I could have slapped her. She continued her tirade, calling all Russians poor, petty, greedy, and horrible mean people. By now my accent had diminished, but I felt like I should keep talking Russian. Why? Because the thing I learned after a few years of having FAS is that people are less likely to screw with you if you're a Russian or sound Russian. Everyone's just scared straight of Russians. That seemed to go over the head of this woman, but another reason I decided to keep it up was because she'd probably make a bigger scene if I randomly dropped the accent I had. I asked how she expected me to hand over my comrade when she was calling me a terrorist. I knew then that I was screwed. I had started off forcing a Russian accent as planned, but it accidentally turned into a French one. The entitled mother triumphantly pointed over my dog at my face, accusing me of being a lying witch who was selfishly denying her son a dog I didn't need while lying to her face about it. I attempted to call her a crazy mashugana while trying to maintain my Russian accent, but not doing a great job of it. At this time, Sarge had walked back in with Emma on arm, confused and oblivious as to what was going on. All he heard was me call this psycho a mashugana and saw how red her face was. All the while, Comrade was extremely on edge. He briskly walks over. Now, I need to pause for a minute. When I titled this post, Scary Russian, that was kind of the equivalent of written clickbait. In actuality, Sarge is a teddy bear, like an actual lump of sugar. He's very patient and charming to talk to, but lots of people are intimidated by his big build and thickish Russian accent. But be warned, he becomes very cold when he gets angry, even though that's not often, because again, lots of patience. Although, even though he wouldn't hurt a fly, people don't know that, and he is also pretty defensive when it comes to me. Back to the story. Sarge stepped between Comrade and I and the entitled duo, politely asking if he could help the woman. The entitled mother responded with an eye roll, dismissively suggesting he was another fake Russian, this time with a hawk. The entitled brat looks at the owl and is captivated, as the mother is repulsed, probably thinking, "What a savage." Sarge expressed surprise at her rudeness and clarified that he was from near Sochi. He then asked why she was harassing his girlfriend. The entitled mother grabbed the entitled brat by the shoulders and accused me of falsely claiming the mutt was a service dog instead of giving it to her son. She then asked Sarge, as a Russian, if his people weren't supposed to share. Sarge calmly but firmly objected to her referring to Comrade as a mutt and questioned what she meant by your people. He pointed out that he was in America and was a capitalist like her. He expressed disapproval of her attitude in demanding service dogs from strangers and suggested she consider whether her behavior was setting a good example for her son. The entitled mother's jaw dropped in stunned silence before she exploded, demanding to know if he was telling her how to parent her son. Sarge pinched the bridge of his nose as I, defeated, just took my journal out and continued to draw my graphic picture. The entitled mother begins bringing up the "my people" thing again, accusing us of having two beautiful pets that we selfishly wouldn't share. Sarge suggested that if she was so obsessed with his people, perhaps she should move to Russia. Sarge is trying to reason with the mad woman, and at this point, I just exit the conversation. I sit cross-legged in the booth, stroking Comrade therapeutically with one hand, working on my image with my other, with one singular hand. I point this out for a reason. I point this out because a minute after I zoned out, apparently what had happened is the little crap crawled behind Sarge's legs without him noticing, under the booth, and snatched my journal from my lap. I loudly demanded to know what was happening, shocked that my journal had been taken. The entitled brat scurried back out from the table and ran to hide behind the entitled mother. I've already lost it and Sarge is on his way. Before Sarge can grab the notebook back from the kid, he takes one look down and starts wailing. It's time to reveal what I was drawing. It was a picture of a Grim Reaper zombie type situation, eating the organs of a dead woman, most of the limbs severed. The entitled mother rips the book from the entitled brat and gets the same look of absolute horror, shoving the page in the direction of Sarge and I. The entitled mother shouted, asking what kind of freak I was, and insisting this wasn't something that should be advertised to the public. I yelled back that it was private property, calling her a witch. Now we are officially in a screaming match, which causes Comrade to squirm in place and whimper. The entitled mother continued screaming, claiming the dog wasn't even happy with me. Meanwhile, the entitled brat started cry-screaming and making grabby motions toward Emma, the owl on Sarge's arm, saying he wanted the bird. He got too close to Emma, which made Sarge pull back, firmly refusing. That owl is not the tamest. It could have seriously scratched the heck out of that kid. The entitled brat continues to scream. No BS. The entitled mother now chucks my journal, hardcover, at the window right next to my head. This, my friend, is when all hell breaks loose. The window cracks, which thank God it didn't break because the glass definitely would have cut me sitting right there. And the sound of the impact freaks Emma out and she screeches, flapping her wings about and taking off around the McDonald's. Sarge is thrown into a panic. If the bird got lost or injured, it would be his own doing. Sarge exclaimed in dismay, realizing the serious situation we were now in. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but the staff had already called the police, and now that Emma was loose, they, thinking quickly, locked all the doors. This would make sure the mother from hell and her demonic hellspawn wouldn't get out, nor would Emma. I'm still flipping at everything that's going on, and then the entitled mother runs to the counter where her now cold food was and begins a tantrum of her own, throwing food everywhere. She squirts ketchup on the walls, throws fries at the staff and at Sarge, and all the while she is doing this, and I've been trying to calm Comrade down, who was getting worried. The entitled brat lunges at Comrade, yanking furiously at his collar. Bad idea. I try to warn him, tell him off, but too late. Comrade has gone into attack mode. He turns around and pounces at the boy, his weight throwing the entitled brat to the ground, having fallen flat on his back. Does he bite him? Nope. Does he claw at him? Nope. Comrade is trained to scare an attacker, but not actually attack until I or Sarge give the command. So there they are, on the floor. My dog with his front paws flat on the floor, butt in the air, teeth baring, growling, snarling. Although the brat more than pissed me off, I felt bad for him. I was just about to tell Comrade off, and then the entitled mother came up behind her shaking son to slap his snout. Yes, that happened. This witch hit my service dog. I was so shocked and infuriated that I couldn't get words out. The entitled mother shouted at me to muzzle my dog, calling me a freak. Then I feel something very, very cold being poured all over me. It's a melted fudge sundae. At this point, I was in such shock I didn't even have any thoughts. I only gasped. I barely reacted while Comrade was still in defense mode. When Sarge looked over, he finally lost patience. And this is where the scary Russian boyfriend part comes in. With a scowl, he marches up to the entitled brat, picks him up effortlessly by his underarms. He was not being rough or malicious, and sticks him in a high chair made for toddlers, meaning it's much too small, and the entitled brat is now stuck sitting in one place. The entitled mother is freaking out more than she ever did and begins to hit Sarge, beating his head. Pretty pathetically, might I add. This is no sweat to Sarge. He moves slowly, letting her hit him a couple of times, and then grabs each of her wrists. He pulls a move, and basically now she has her arms pinned behind her back, and she is still screaming. The entitled mother frantically demanded that Sarge let her go, repeating her demand over and over while calling him a jerk. Sarge, with an extremely heavy Russian accent, refused, explaining that he had lost all respect for her and wouldn't unhand her when she was acting like an animal. He then shoved her into a seat. Once she's sitting and Sarge is standing over her, she gets quiet. The only sounds to be heard are Comrade growling and the entitled brat whimpering. He has a stare down and she looks away, scared. I know she was scared specifically not just from the way she was sweating, but how she tried to bolt for the door past Sarge. She actually made it, but it was locked. One of the staff came out from the kitchen trying to restrain her, but he just got punched in the face. She pounded on the door. Never mind her son still trapped in the high chair because apparently she saw police outside. Sarge saw them too, so he didn't worry about the entitled mother anymore. Instead, now that Emma was calm enough to command, he called her over to perch on his arm and got me napkins to clean me up, apologizing as he helped me. When the cops were inside the premise, the entitled mother did not waste any time before making her claims. She expressed relief at the officer's arrival and then proceeded to accuse us, pointing at me and Sarge, who were innocently cleaning up the sticky mess. She claimed we had stolen her service dog, assaulted both her and her son, and had our hawk attack them too. She also accused us of locking her in. The officers were alarmed yet slightly confused. The accusations were alarming, but the call they received was totally different from the story that the entitled mother was telling them. The McDonald's employee who got punched in the face and now had a bloody nose announced that he would like to present Exhibit A. He then held up his phone to the crowd so they could see the screen. It was a video. I couldn't help but laugh. The entitled mother went pale and tried to bolt past the officers, again forgetting her son, but she didn't even make it to the doors. She was charged with attempted theft, animal cruelty, disruption of property, vandalism, assault, resisting arrest, lying to an officer, disrupting the peace, and even child endangerment. She went from a hot-headed psycho to a blubbering and apologetic single mother who needs sympathy. As they were detaining her and figuring out what to do with the child in terms of the other parent, or CPS, they asked who the manager was. Coolly smirking and still mostly covered in ice cream, I raised my hand, and in an all-American accent reply that it was me. The look on the entitled mother's face, gasps, priceless. I had to hold back more laughter as we took care of some paperwork, answered questions, and pressed charges. We took the rest of the day off and I could finally laugh until I almost threw up. Nothing in the moments before the arrest was even remotely humorous, It was living hell, but I don't think it would be too much of a stretch to say the ending made up for it. We ended up getting $5,000 in charges, not including the cost to fix the window which she or insurance also paid for, and Comrade got all the belly rubs he could ever ask for. Though I don't really let other strangers touch him anymore, probably because of this. Thanks Sarge, my wonderful sweet Russian partner. Also, I don't know what happened to the kid or mom, but I know the mom at least got some jail time. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.